In this section, we are not going to incorporate any new feature into this application, but instead we are going to find a way to organize our project. As it stands right now, we are writing everything on a single file at the backend. But as our application grows, this approach is not ideal. This is where design patterns comes in. And we are going to use what is called MVC Design pattern. MVC simply means model, view, and controller. And this is a design pattern which is widely used in architecture pattern for developing user interfaces. And this one is commonly used in web application that uses Express. In the context of Express.js, the MVC design pattern divides the application into 3 interconnected components. This separation helps in managing complexity, promote organized coding, and facilitate scalability and maintainability. And here is the overview. We are going to talk about how it's going to work. M stands for model, V for view, and C for controller. So let's begin with the model. The model represents the data and the business logic of the application. It is responsible for managing the data of the application, which might include a database, an XML file, or any other storage mechanism. The model is not concerned with any user interface or presentational logic, but rather with the data, its storage, and its manipulation. And the view is what the user sees. It represents the presentation of the data provided by the model. In web application, views are usually the HTML pages that are rendered in the user's browser. They display the data to the user and receive user input like form submission to be sent back to the server. And since we are using React, React represents our view. And lastly, the controller. The controller acts as the intermediary between the model and the view. It listens to user input, typically through HTTP requests, processes them often with the help of model component, and returns the output display, and that is the view. In Express, routes are often set up in the controllers, which define the logic to be executed when certain HTTP paths and methods are accessed. So let's say that this is a user who is using our application. Now let's look at the relationship or how these components are going to talk to each other. Let's say that the user wants to fetch all posts. Therefore, the user will make a request, and the request will send to the controller. And this is where we have implemented the logic to be able to retrieve the data from the database. Let me show you with this code. Let's get back to the server.js file, and this is where we are implementing all the logics. And this is a route that talks to the model. Remember, we have the post model here. So this is where we are fetching all the posts. So at this point, when a user makes the request will hit our controller. At this point, let's assume that this is our controller. And the controller will now talk to the model. In this case, this is our model that this controller is talking to. Then the model will send that request to our database, in this case, our MongoDB database. In case we have some post, the response will be sent back to the model, and the model will send to the controller, and the controller will send to the view for the user to see. As you can see over here, the controller is the intermediary between view and then the model. The view cannot talk to the controller directly. Likewise, the model cannot talk to the view. So this is how MVC design works. Let's see one more diagram, and over here we have the user here, the browser, the route, the controller, model, and then the MongoDB database. When a user accesses the application, for example, fetching all posts from the browser, the request is going to hit our express router or server, and the request will send to the controller, and the controller will send that query to the model, and the model will talk to the MongoDB database and gives us the response back to the controller, and the controller will send that one to the browser for the user to see. This is how MVC Design pattern works.